kind of argued at the time that came out that they kind of killed the civil engineer because
Yeah.
now now you don't need to know the breadth of civil engineering topics for that exam, and you just need to know your specific discipline.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's pluses and minuses to that as a whole, but that was kind of my disappointment when I first saw that. But
Hey, folks. Welcome to another edition of the 21st Century Engineer podcast. As you recall, our goal here is to talk to individuals who want to be impactful and what it takes to be impactful. We've talked about a lot of different things, and I think you're going to find our conversation today very informative, very interesting, and very important to a lot of you. Because at the end of the day, licensure is a fundamental credential for those working in the civil infrastructure area. And our guest today is working as hard as he can to help individuals succeed in moving down through the licensure process. Isaac, really great to have you here today. I appreciate you taking some time out and spending it with us, investing it with us. And so, if you will, you want to give the audience a kind of an overview of who you are and what you're up to.
definitely, Dennis, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it. This is really fun for me to do, so appreciate you reaching out and having me here. Yeah, quick introduction of myself. Again, Isaac Oakeson. I'm the founder of Civil Engineering Academy. I started it about 10 years ago. I'm just like really any other civil engineer, kind of. I advertise myself as someone in the trenches. I still practice. My career took me into the utility world where I dabbled in some environmental, and eventually I found myself doing transmission engineering. So working on high voltage power lines.
Good deal.
Um, yeah, it was really fun and still involved in that world quite a bit. Moved into project management roles, supervisory roles, and now have found myself on the operations side of things, doing all kinds of stuff, including flying drones, but still staying grounded in some of that transmission design work.
Oh,
So,
very punny, staying grounded in electrical transmission.
yes,
And by the way,
lots of
folks, if
puns.
you don't know, civils are basically the ones that keep the light on the house. I don't know what electrical engineers do, but civils are the one that
There you go.
build the plants and build the transmission lines. So next time you flip
Yep,
that switch, think of civil engineer, like I
that's
do.
right.
Yeah.
And they're needed. I mean, utilities hire every engineer, but civil engineers design all the structure, all the infrastructure related to utility world. So, anyway, my background was in transmission, but I started Civil Engineering Academy because I ran through my schooling. I passed the FE exam. Back when I took it, it was still paper based.
Ooh,
Um, yeah.
we won't talk
You're
about what
probably
it was like
before
when I
me,
took it
right,
and the
Dennis?
dinosaurs were still roaming the planet.
And now it's switched to CBT, and we've stayed on top of that, and it's gone through some changes. But yeah, I passed the FE. When I finished school, I went and took the PE, and it actually took me a couple tries. I thought I could get it done early. I took it in Arizona after being out of school for a short period of time, because in Arizona you could take it at that time after 2 years, and I'm in Utah, so I said I'm going to get this thing knocked out.
Good for
I
you.
didn't. I had to repeat it, and because of that process, I was like, maybe there's a better way of helping to prepare engineers for this exam. And so I started Civil Engineering Academy, trying to not gatekeep information, but should just share it with the world on trying to help people become professional engineers. And what that's led to, though, is creating our own exams, creating our own courses, and trying to really put the nail in the coffin for people that whether this is their first time or their fifth time taking the exam, helping them. And whether you're, freshly starting your career, or we've helped people in their 60s that just want to get it because
Why did you look
they
at me
have
when
the
you said
goal.
that? Uh,
Well,
well, and for those of you that don't know, CBT is computer-based testing, and those who don't currently have a license probably haven't known there's an option. Though CBT is the format now being used for the principles and practice or PE exam, and it's an interesting world, and these are constantly changing and being updated. The models are changing. The audience knows I work with NCEES, not in exam development. When I was with the academic side, I made out enough exams. I didn't want to get into doing FE and PE exams. Still don't, but
Uh,
I do know the other sides of this. Also, I'm on the licensure board here in the States. So, what you're doing, and this is part of the reason, of course, Isaac, I've asked you to come on, is very important. Today's model for taking the exam is people are pretty much on their own. Back when you took it in paper or pencil, when I took it was given on 1 of 2 days a year. Everybody got together. We stayed focused. We worked on each other. We supported each other. There was a certain amount of peer pressure on each other. And at the end
yeah,
of the day, we succeeded. And then as things went on, we became, and that's part of the PE issue, is you're doing it on your own. You're out there by yourself, and there's nobody really helping you. So what you're doing and what the Civil Engineering Academy is doing is really important, and I applaud you for doing it.
I
Uh,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
that's excellent. And you didn't mention, but I'm going to go ahead and jump in. Mention in addition to that, you're also helping with professional development. So you've also added a podcast to the platforms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have our own podcast platform. We have one of the largest social media followings on our YouTube channel in this weird niche of civil engineering. There's not only so many civil engineers out there, but the people are finding us out there, and it's been fun. Not only to talk about this topic of civil engineering, why this is a great place to be, why it's a good career path, but also to help them on that journey to become professional engineers. So, yeah,
yeah, and with the license, regardless, that is the first stepping stone of many that leads to an individual becoming a leader in the profession. It moves you into that position where you can now uh, be in charge, be project manager, sign and seal the designs, and they're your designs that you're signing and sealing, which is a lot of fun.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the value of having that PE license, not only from a business perspective, more work is going to be coming to you if you have that. Employers want you to have that. But, we are the protectors of the public, and having that PE license
Yeah,
protects the public. There are threats to licensure, as I'm sure you're aware, where some states are trying to devalue that a little bit. They kind of wrap
yeah,
cutting hair in the same category as civil engineering, and
yeah.
that's not the right move. So, yeah,
Well, it's about protecting
there's a
the
lot of
health,
steps.
safety, and welfare of the public. And the alternative to the system we have in place is going back to the Romans, where you let somebody build a bridge and then they stand under the bridge when it's first used. And if they survive, they go on to design other bridges. If they don't, it takes care of itself.
There
Not
you go.
exactly the way we want to go, I don't think. Hey,
And
you're focused in on the FE and the PE for good reasons. Or if you rather, the examination. A lot of people talk about uh, the old models talk about a three-legged stool: education, experience, and examination. That model is up for debate at NCEES and some boards, but at the end of the day, the examination piece is there. The evaluation piece, as some people would call it. Can you talk about how do you see, or based on what you're working on, what's the role of taking a PE or FE examination in assuring the competency of those who are licensed?
yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people hate the NCES. Like,
Oh yeah,
some civil engineers struggle that they have to take this exam, or you'll have international students that have to jump through hoops to try to take this exam. But there still needs to be a good way to set a benchmark of what an engineer's competency level is. And right now, this is the best way to do it. So, I don't find fault in what the NCES is doing. I think what they're doing is great, and the mission that they've got is setting the bar for what civil engineers need to do to show that level of competency. So I do think that still needs to be there as part of that three-legged stool. But yeah, you can poke holes on some of the things, and maybe some of the qualifications to even try to get your PE license. And I think that's where some people maybe struggle with. especially our international students that are really wanting to get the PE license. And I think they're trying their best to accommodate those candidates as well. But yeah, it's an important thing and still a benchmark I think that needs to be met. What where that benchmark is maybe also debatable. You could poke holes at with what questions they're asking and how they answer. Are they throwing too much theory at you versus conceptual and things of that nature? But there needs to be something, and I think they do a good job at it.
Well, the argument, at least with the PE exams, it's natural to make the FE exam a more academic exam because when you take it, the PE exam tends to fall into being a bit of an academic exam. But then again, it's an exam.
Yeah,
Tell me how you make a non-academic exam short of making a normal conversation.
that's very true.
Yeah. So
Yeah, the FE is known for being more related to topics you would take in your college curriculum
right,
and very heavy on the math and such.
right.
And then when you roll into the PE, it's expected that you have work experience and that you're coming into taking that, taking something that's applicable to your own discipline. And so you're diving into that because it will not only help your career, but yeah, you're going to dive into maybe more subjects that you haven't but are still applicable to your career.
Yeah. Do you think that transition, particularly again in the PE exam, do you think that transition is what really makes it so difficult to prepare for, or to take, or more importantly, to pass?
Yeah, there's a couple things. When most people are preparing for the FE, they're taking it when they're in school, so topics are top of mind. Some people do wait, and the longer, I mean, this is a tip. You want to get that done as soon as possible because the longer you're away from college, the harder it is to remember things, and you're gonna have to break open the books again and go back remembering your dynamics and such.
Well,
So
it's also the aspect of learning how to take a test. A lot of students
yes,
their freshman year don't know how to take college tests. Well, okay, so now that you come out, you know how to take tests. 4 years, 5 years, 6 years later, test taking's an art that maybe has been lost a little bit, atrophied a
yep,
little bit. So,
for sure.
yeah. And as a footnote for those listening, I don't. I guess I kind of redundant. I mean, obviously, it's not a footnote for those who aren't listening, but the idea here is that more and more states are going through a process of decoupling, where you don't have to wait. You mentioned earlier that how long you had to wait or didn't have to wait in
Yep.
Arizona. More and more states are saying, "Look, you passed the FE, you got your degree. Go ahead and take the PE exam and get it out of the way." So,
Yeah, and you're still waiting to get that 4 years of experience, but
oh yeah,
that you
yeah.
can take the exam very quickly after you're done with the FE, and that's been a nice thing for a lot of engineers. I wish I had that, but I haven't. So, yeah, you need to check with your own state's Department of
We
Professional Licensing. Definitely
we
an option.
used to have it, and then they changed it the 2 years before I sat for the exam, which meant that I had to sit 4 years for the exam.
There you go. Yeah, so and that leads to why is the PE harder? Because a lot of people do wait that 4 years. And so again, you're dragging it out longer. You're removed from the subjects maybe more than you should be. And so you have to get back into study mode. You have to get back into homework mode. You have to treat it like a part-time job. Most people are preparing for this with around 300 hours of preparation time, and you can work that backwards, but most people are spending about 2 hours on a week, yeah, every weekday, and then 5 to 6 8 hours on a weekend
Yeah,
to knock this thing out of the park. So be prepared for that. This is your new part-time job.
yeah. I told my former students that wanted to take the FE. I said, if you don't put in 40 hours of good hard studying, real studying, not opening a book and going to sleep studying, but real studying, uh, it was a crapshoot. You do the 40
Yeah,
hours, you're pretty much guaranteed to pass. But the point
that's true.
was, you have to be serious about it. You have to really study. You have to go through processes and really study aids, sample exams, the work that you're doing through the academy. All provide opportunities for individuals to knock the rust off, get their head screwed back into preparing for an exam. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
one of the biggest strategies, obviously, in preparing for the exam is not really to start reading the theory, but to actually start solving problems. And so you're going to
Yes,
print out the
yes,
specification related to your exam, But if you're starting to solve problems, that's going to get you up to speed much faster, and you can, you're refreshing your memory, so you're plugging in the theory as you study. And my advice to anybody that's preparing for this is, there is a lot of theory questions on the exam now, and it didn't used to be that way. But
Yeah.
you can expect 10 to 15 questions in the morning, 10 to 15 in the afternoon of just straight theory questions. And so you should be asking yourself as you're solving questions, what if I changed a variable? What happens if the numerator is higher than denominator? What would how would I word this as a theory question? You're a professor
We got a
in this.
third of
How
we
would you
got a
do
third of the
that?
group going. Now, which one's the denominator again?
Yeah, maybe. That's all right. We'll help
And
you.
it's okay, folks. You're not taking the exam. It's okay. You'll have to make sure you get it right later, and in practice,
Yeah.
of course. But that's great. Because I'm so proud of what you're doing. I know you are too, but I am personally proud of what you're doing with the Civil Engineering Academy. What are you doing for the sake of those listening? And this isn't a business promo as such, and certainly not a business advertisement, at least not at this point. But what is
Yeah.
it? What makes you different? I mean, the NCEES has a practice exam. Kaplan has a practice exam. PPC has a practice exam.
Yeah.
What are you doing
There's
to help with success?
there are a lot of options for engineers, and this is also kind of why people hesitate to take the exam, because it's expensive too. You're taking the PE, it costs $400, and that fee has
Yep.
continued to creep up. And anytime you reschedule, it's $50. But when I started Civil Engineering Academy, I wanted to give engineers what they needed, but not more than what they needed, to pass
Good,
their exams.
good.
And so a lot of times, you'll get resources that are 4 inches thick with
Hmm.
material, and there are some subjects that just simply are applicable to the exam that you're taking. So we've really tried to take a tailored solution to each discipline, and making sure we're giving you just what you need. Another thing is, people have loved our support that we've give to people. As I mentioned, we are in the trenches with you. We are practicing engineers, and so we can relate. I have a brother that helps us. He's a structural engineer, which is another can of worms. Those are $350 per exam, and they switched that to CBT, and that's been a little bit of a nightmare for people. So,
12%
um,
pass rate. Oh, yeah. Mm.
yeah, there's that. And the PE, you've got between a 60 and 70% pass rate on your first time taking it, and it drops significantly as a repeat taker. So ideally, you want to put your best foot forward that first time, but don't be discouraged by the numbers either. A lot of the people that end up finding us at Civil Engineering Academy, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, are repeat takers, and so they're looking for help. And I also think this is what sets us apart is we we solve problems with you, like by hand. Our video practice problems, this is how I started on YouTube, is solving problems. It's why we amassed an audience there. And that's the same thing within our courses. So we're solving problems with you, explaining things step by step. We also are providing exams that are not only like PDF downloadable exams you can do on your own, but also a CBT exam simulator, which is lifelike to the real exam experience. So,
Yeah.
tried to make that look like the real deal as best as we could, so that you can be better prepared when you actually go take the real deal. And practice exams are a whole nother thing that you know are crucial to preparing for the PE. A lot of people I have found that aren't passing aren't taking practice exams serious. So
Yeah, or they're not using them correctly.
yeah,
They take them after having studied something, or they bias the data that they give. I always tell people, when you take a practice exam, take it cold, take it without studying, sit down and take it, and what it does is it tells you strengths and weaknesses, and then you assess. If I had a really low score, let's say in structures, it might be because I didn't have much structures, or I avoided structures when I
right.
was an undergraduate. Well, yeah, and you're not going to teach yourself structures unless you go back to grad school or something like that. So you have to be realistic about what your education prepared you for, and whether you just have lost it or whether you just never had it when you take the exams. But the thing that I hear you saying, Isaac, that I think again applaud you for, and part of the reason why again I'm dragging you in front of the audience today, is that support piece. That I have the experience, I've been there, I know what you're going through, and we can overcome this inverse relationship between succeeding and having to repeat the exam. And for those of you that haven't looked, you pass the exam on your first take because you prepare correctly, then yeah, you are looking at a 60, 70% pass rate. That pass rate gets cut in half to a third if you do the same thing again and take the exam. The old adage, do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is insanity. This is certainly an example for that. So,
Yes, for sure. I get a lot of people that come our way and they would like to know how they can pass because they haven't. And they'll send maybe their results to me and ask, "Hey, what can I do better? Or should I switch my exam totally because I this one is just so I bombed it, you know?" And there's a couple tips with that. I don't recommend switching exams because you've just gained a ton of experience going through it just one time. You know the look, you know the feel, you
right,
know how they throw questions at you,
right.
and if it's related to your workplace, it's worth the struggle to do it again. In rare circumstances, would I suggest to switch PE exams? Because if you look at pass rates, a lot of engineers gravitate to water resources or transportation. They're all difficult exams, but if you just are looking at pass rates, water resources typically high. Transportation was high this year. The NCEES must have changed things because it dropped to the lowest
Really?
for pass rates. Did you do something there,
No,
Dennis?
no, it wasn't me. You can't blame me. I did no, but yeah, the way they put it together does change by quarter. Every quarter is a different exam. It's and sometimes it's just who's taking the exam. But
Yeah, and I mean, and the exam goes through changes. It's CBT exam where it used to not be. And I did an interview on our podcast with Tim Miller at the time, and he was over the exams, and
yep,
and
no,
that
I know that.
timeline got accelerated because of COVID, and it was a mess for them to try to sort that out. And now they went through the biggest change ever on their specifications just last April of 2024, where the exam used to be breadth and then depth, and they always maintained that breadth section among all disciplines, and then they would change the depth to your own. And they've removed the breadth section, and now they're all discipline specific. And a lot of those things got still stayed there, but they got rid of all the breadth stuff.
Yeah, which I wasn't really fond of because at the end of the day, particularly at the undergraduate level. Now, if you got a PhD, yeah, give me all the depth you can give. I mean, I can eat depth for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But I got a BS degree. I'm more breadth person. I do.
I agree. I
I've got 5, 6, 7 different disciplines, all of which I've been exposed to, but I haven't
well,
mastered.
I kind of argued at the time that came out that they kind of killed the civil engineer because
Yeah,
now you don't need to know the breadth of civil engineering topics for that exam, and you just need to know your specific discipline.
right.
So
Yeah.
there's pluses and minuses to that as a whole, but that was kind of my disappointment when I first saw that.
Yeah.
But
Well, for me, it would be a matter that would be more appropriate to me for the PE exam, not the FE. And but
right.
hey, I'm not making that the exam, so it's what we have to deal with. What we have to deal with. Uh, I know that you've done a lot of psychometric analysis in developing the strategies that you use in preparing individuals through your program, as well as guiding them in the test taking approaches. Uh, as many times as I've reviewed for FE and PE, some of the strategies that I've heard about, I've used as well. And I'm just curious: is there anything in particular or the process whereby preparing and taking exams with some good, I'm going to say 5,000-foot strategies are?
Yeah, let's start with practice exams first. So if you're taking practice exams, I always recommend taking one fairly early into your studies, maybe 2 months into it. to gauge where you're at. Obviously, we talked about that earlier, to
Right.
see where your strengths and weaknesses are. You for sure want to take one. I recommend maybe 3 weeks before the real exam. That one's going to be the real indicator of whether you're scoring well. And you typically want to shoot for about a 70% on those exams to feel comfortable. If you can get higher than that, that's great. But if you're saying, am I ready? I would say that's kind of the bar you need to hit.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and then, when comes down to game time and you're sitting there and your palms are sweaty and you're staring at a screen, how do you tackle the problems that are going to start coming your way? You're going to take what comes to you. This is a strategy that I think people naturally do. We kind of labeled it as a 3-pass system. But the first time you're going to go through that exam, you're obviously going to knock out every question that you can answer quickly. Something that you're going to read it. If it comes to you quickly, knock it out. When you come to something that is a little more challenging, maybe it looks like a code lookup that you need to look up, or you need to dive into handbook a little more, or you know how to solve it, but it's a little more of a challenge. I'd go ahead and flag that. And I hate to say this, but part of taking this exam is timing and making sure you're watching the clock. And so
Oh
if
yeah.
you've taken the practice exams, you've set yourself up for the biggest success of getting through the exam. Some people struggle just to get through the exam and they're left guessing on the last 10 questions. You do not want to find yourself doing that.
Right.
So that first pass, answer everything that you can fairly quickly. The second pass, you're going to answer the questions that you can solve that are going to take you more time. The third pass are going to be those questions that you just have never seen before. You're going to have to guess. And ideally, you can reason those out if they are multiple choice. They do have alternative item type questions.
Right.
But if it is multiple choice or even AIT, try to reason it out and try to give yourself the best chance of guessing the the right
Yeah.
answer, even if you could get half of them knocked out. So
Well, as I always told the students, how many times would you like to take an exam and have them give you the answers? This is one of those examples. The
very
answer's sitting there. Your problem is figuring out which one it is.
that's right.
And so,
So
it's kind of a reverse test taking. There's some ways of strategizing where you pick one of the answers and see if it works, and if it doesn't work, you pick the right one. You A B C D. You pick B. If it
yeah,
doesn't work, and it's an answer that's going to be smaller, assuming they rank them, well, you have to work it again. It's A. And if it's larger, well, you got C and D to pick from. Pick one, and you either get it right or you get it wrong, and you still have the answer. So,
there you
yeah,
go. That's exactly what I would do. And I know they're trying to get away from that. They've introduced
yeah.
alternative item type questions, and because it's computer based, they can virtually mix it all up. But
Well, that's true.
historically speaking, they haven't thrown a ton of alternative item type questions at people yet. But if it's drag and drop, or
Right.
multiple correct, or point and click, or everyone's favorite fill in the blank, and who knows how that's um, you know they've fudged factored stuff into that to make sure you're getting the right answer.
Yeah.
All those things could come into play. But
Well, and remember on the multiple on the fill in the blank, the process of examination evaluation is still somewhat automated. When I took the exam, I didn't learn until literally decades later that on one problem I had, I spent an hour and a half writing an answer, and found out that the grader had all of 2 minutes to read it. So it's like, okay, so what are they doing? Throwing it down the steps and seeing if it lands far enough away that it is too light and too short, or what? Yeah, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it's a different day. It's with computers and the analyses and large language models. It's a different day. It makes it tougher to take. Uh,
Hey Dennis, I'm curious
yeah,
because you've taken exams, but what are your thoughts on the whole exam experience and where it's sitting today with CBT and such?
I think. Well, I think you've actually hit on most of the points that I would hit on. I don't like the FE the way it's put together because of the reasons I've already stated. I think the FE exam should be a fundamentals of engineering exam. That's what the F stands for, not the grade you're going to get. It's fundamentals, and
Yep.
so this idea of testing within one of five disciplines, in some ways, is dumbing down the exam.
Hmm.
It's saying, hey, you had ABET requires you to have at least four areas. Um, you probably had five, but you have to have at least four areas of in your discipline in your approved degree. So let's let you pick the one that you did the best in, and maybe you'll get a good score.
Mm,
No, man. I mean, I'm going to go out here and when somebody says, "What's your degree in?" It's going to be civil engineering. It's not going to be environmental or water resources or transportation or construction or structures. It's going to be civil
yeah,
engineering. And by the way, folks, those are the five areas for the FE. So you know, it's just what it is. The other part of the exam, I do like the computer exam, if for no other reason that probably like you in many ways I walked in with several suitcases full of books to
oh
take the
yes,
exam.
I did
And now
too.
you don't have to drag the books. The manual's free and available, and learning to use it as a reference. I mean, I think most people today can use PDFs and scan them. And so I think the reference manual is a simplification for what would be a pseudo open book exam. It's not open to
Yep,
any
they
book.
give you the reference manual, and if you're worried about the codes and standards associated with your discipline, they give you all of those too.
It's got to be there. They're not going to ask you a question that can't be answered with what's in the reference manual.
That is
When
correct.
I took the PE exam, I had a simple water distribution problem staring me in the face, and I reached into my book bag, as it were, my suitcase of books, and realized I had brought tons of has waste, air pollution, wastewater books. I didn't have one water book with me. I had to redrive Hardy Cross in order to solve a three loop
Oh my
water
goodness.
network. Now it wasn't that bad because again, because of who I am and what I was, and I just happened to be teaching the class. So I had
Perfect.
derived Hardy Cross on the board for the students a couple times, and so it just and I didn't really have to derive it other. I couldn't remember whether the delta H was on top or the sum Q was on the bottom. So
Yeah, some would argue that because it is computer based, some would argue that it's an easier exam because when it was open book, the breadth and the depth of what they could ask you, I mean,
unlimited.
could be anything,
Yeah,
you know, follow the spec, but really they could ask you anything. And so that's why you would have a suitcase
yeah.
full of books.
And of
And
course, it's shorter too. The FE, for example, is a 5.5 hour exam with the
yes,
startup and shutdown and other things adding to that time. The FE that I took was 8 hours. I mean, from
me too.
go to put your pencils down, 8 solid hours. So you got in at 7 in the morning and left at 6 at night. If you could live, if you could leave,
It's
if
a
there was
long
anything
day.
left.
You will be brain dead, I promise, after either one of these exams.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
they're tough exams, as they should be. So,
yes,
anyway,
as they should be.
let me shift you over. We're burning up time. I love talking with you about this, and again, as I've said already a couple times, I really applaud you for doing this, and I know this is a labor of love, and it's a professional sacrifice and commitment to others to see that they succeed. The there's Civil engineers get licensed at a rate, take the exams at a disproportionate level compared to the other engineering disciplines.
Mhm.
Um, why? Why are civil engineers seeking licensure? And is that the right thing to do, or should they blow off the exam and just
Well,
not?
no, I think they should definitely take it. A lot of engineers may just be thinking about a salary level. You know, we did our own survey at Civil Engineering Academy. I know ASCE does their survey too. We found out that by in our own little survey that by just getting your license, you're probably close to 25K um,
Yeah,
of salary in addition to what you're getting. But civil engineers obviously affect everything we do in life: water we drink, buildings we're in, the infrastructure we use every day. So it has, and it started that way for civil engineers to take that license, and now they've increased. I think they have 20 different engineering disciplines that you can get this license now, but civil is always the highest on that list.
yeah,
We affect the public and the welfare of the public, and I think it's important to be licensed. Um, there are some other details with that, but it is historically started with civil engineers, and that is civil engineers are always the highest test takers because we affect the public's safety, and it's important. And there are other disciplines that affect that too. I work with a lot of electrical engineers too, and they're looking at
Right.
trying to get power PE and such. But for them, it's almost like an extra credential. It feels like for civil engineers, there is a weight when you're stamping something. Um, your name is there, and you're signing off that this will stand. So that's why I think it's historically been the highest, and it will remain the highest.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't want to take anything from our brothers and sisters in the other disciplines. In fact, I've got somebody coming up in a podcast in the somewhat distant future right now who happens to be a chemical engineer, but certainly, and does not have a license. But in the environment in which she practices, the license is actually discouraged.
Hmm.
But she's moved into and recognizes in terms of her professional development that, first off, being a professional means protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the public, and she's accepted that. She's you may have heard of the obligation of the engineer or the order of the engineer, which the order advances. And she's done the order. In fact, I operated a ring link at one time, and she became a member of the order at that time. And she's held on to for a decade now, working with and holding to that credo and advancing and pushing for licensure. It's just her company doesn't want to see her go get it. To which my answer is always, well, that's probably because they want to buttonhole you in such a way where they don't want you being able to move freely. The license really facilitates your career in a way that allows you to be in charge of your career. You're no longer dependent upon the fact, in many ways, with the license, you're in a position where you can look at the boss and say, "That's wrong. I'm not going to stand here for it. And either you change it or I'm leaving." Then
Yeah.
it's up to them to decide. The other anecdote I'll give you, and this goes back several years ago, there were a lot of engineers out in the West who were found themselves without work because of a change in the market. Um, and I say engineers in a sense, a lot of them had licenses, a lot of them didn't have licenses. The people that had licenses all had jobs within 5 6 months. The ones that didn't have licenses were looking after 2 years to find jobs as engineering. So it is a credential, but it's also a license, and it allows you to
Right.
practice in that environment where you may have started off digging ditches, but now you're hanging wire on superstructures,
Yep.
and that gives you that responsibility to make sure you're competent, that you're protecting the lives, and the work's done correctly. Right out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the doors will open, and whether some engineers say, well, they're not going to immediately open, and then maybe that's the true for the second you get it. But as you progress in your career, you're going to find that the PE will unlock all kinds of doors for you.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
not happy at a location, you can always move and command more. You can start your own business. You have to have your PE license
Right.
if you're going to start an engineering firm. So all of those are options, and they're open to you once you get that.
Well, and again, if you're the one that's designing that public works project, that civil infrastructure project, that license is essential for you to be the one to validate it. Otherwise, you're working under somebody else and they're going to take credit for your work.
That is very true.
Yeah.
And that's another kind of tip out there for people trying to get their license. You want to make sure you're documenting all of your work experience, and those that supervised you that had PE licenses. I can't tell you how many people come to me that maybe didn't do that or forgot to do that, and they're kind of reaching out to anyone and everyone that has a license to sign off on their work. So
Yeah.
make sure you're documenting all that.
And do it early. Again, get
Do
the
it early.
license out of the way when it's easier to get it out of the way because coming back at 60, uh,
60s.
I can't even, no, man. I just, no. Of course, I don't want to flip burgers either, but that's wild. Okay, we're running short of time. Guess I ran my mouth too much, but I get moving forward. I guess a- any ideas, any experiences, anything you want to point to as far as what you see tomorrow bringing with regard to the exam. Pearson View as the administrator will probably be the administrator for the foreseeable future. Uh,
Yeah.
that idea of persistence, the changes in the exam. Any
Yeah. I mean, I think we've gone through the biggest changes so far. So I'm guessing the NCEES isn't going to rock the boat here in the next 5 to 7 years. But again, the specs changed in April 2024, biggest change they've ever had besides going to the CBT exam. And it's at a Pearson View testing center. So gone are the days of going to a huge conference room full of other people. Like you said, this is more of an individual sport now, not a team sport. And so sometimes people struggle to find support of other players that are taking it the same time as them. And so we help with that. We can align
Yep.
you with people that are doing that, or we're here to support you in that adventure. But those are kind of I think the biggest changes are really in the past. I'm hoping hopefully we don't see much more in the next 5 to 7 years until the specs change.
Well, having my nose as a camel under the tent of NCEES, the only change that I foresee, which has been discussed at length, we go back to the structural engineering exam, and there is going to be a change in a couple of years to address how they went from a 40% pass rate to something much less.
Oh yes.
And there were some administration issues, there were some facility issues, there were some missed cues, but they are actually looking at and again, that's depth and breadth on vertical and depth and breadth on horizontal. And so the SE exam is a cat of a different color. Uh,
Yeah, I think their nomenclature is really confusing too because they're calling it PE structural, but there's
yes,
also a structural PE in those
yes.
5 disciplines. So
Well, and that's
are we
exactly
not
correct.
calling it SE anymore or what?
Well, and that goes back to the fact, and I'm not discouraging anybody that wants to do structural engineering to get it. It's a good exam to validate your competency in some of these really significant structures, multi-story high rise, complex horizontal. But at the end of the day, the SE exam, the SE license, excuse me, is something that is hard to come across. Less than a
It is
two
hard.
handfuls of states licensed by discipline. Most of the states license you as a PE, and then your professional ethics and competency are left to you to police up until you screw up, and then you're brought before the board and fined and whatever. So
Yep.
and that's not fun. Trust me, I'm on the board.
It is not fun.
I've got one PE that's looking at a $25,000 fine. We got another one that's
Oof.
looking at $100,000 fine. So
Oh no.
you don't want to be in that situation. Trust me. So do it right, get it right, practice right. Uh, I'll give you one more minute, I guess, to talk a little bit about the academy.
Sure.
Do a plug, if you will, and wrap this thing up.
Yeah, we're excited to help anybody that's in this arena of trying to pass the FE, the PE. We even help people with their CFM exam, which is called Certified Floodplain Manager. So if you're in the water
Oh,
resources world, that's an additional credential that is on top of the PE that you may want to get to help further your career. And we are about to release the California Seismic and Survey course as well to help people in California because they are special over there and have additional exams they have to pass to get the PE done. So you can you can find us at civilengineeringacademy.com where we have a podcast as well, and we're all over social media. If you want to check out our YouTube channel, we have tons of free practice problems if you want to get going. But just search for us at civilengineeringacademy.com and you'll find us. You'll find me all over there too. So I try to hide my ugly mug sometimes, but it's hard to do. And but we keep it entertaining. That's the another thing that sets us apart is I do like to try to have fun with this. Um, Engineering can be a hard subject where it could be dry a little bit, and so we try to have fun with it because it's a great subject, and I can inject some humor as we move it along. So it makes it fun. Personality makes a big difference on who you're preparing with, and we just want to help people get there and get that license.
well, you're talking on the right podcast because that's what we have here. It's a challenging profession, as you say, but it's also a rewarding one, and you don't have to be somber. Uh, there's a lot of fun to be had and enjoyment to be had by creating solutions that change lives and impact people. And again, I thank you for spending time with us today. I thank you for what you're working on, what you're doing to help others. and you're right on track. I wish you all success. If for no other reason, there are people out there that need to succeed, and
Thank you,
you're the
Dennis. We
best.
need more celebrities talking about civil engineering. Need to make it a little more sexy, and maybe the appeal will draw to more crowd to it.
Well, to slow people down, have you ever seen the? I saw it when it back was on HBO, but have you seen the John Oliver thing on civil
I have
infrastructure?
not yet. You need to send me that one.
I'll look for it. It's on YouTube someplace. It was in his second season back when HBO was on cable,
Uh,
and it's to put it simply, when civil engineers do everything right, nothing happens.
that's
So,
right.
so
That
we
is
don't make good
which
movies. But I'll look it up and send you the link. And for those of you that are listening today, I thank you. Um, Send me an email. I'll send you the link too. What the heck? But more importantly, thanks for being with us today. As I say every time we close, I recognize and appreciate your wanting to take time to invest with us. And I consider it an investment of time, just the same way as I hope that the time spent with us pays dividends in your career and your personal life moving forward. Until we
thank
meet again, I think somebody used to sing that regularly. Anyway, I'm not going to break into song. That would end the podcast permanently in all regards.
but you have a good voice,
Hey,
Dennis.
well, I appreciate that. I'll check in the mail. Uh, you guys take care. Again, thanks for spending time with us, Isaac. You too. Until
Thank you.
next time.